The Eternal Parade, 1977 to Forever. Tested by tragedy in 1997 when the Cat in the Hat balloon crashed, causing injury, the parade paused, reflected, tweaked itself, and headed for a limitless future. The pageant is now indispensable. It is inconceivable to have a Thanksgiving without the Macy's parade, as it would be to have a 4th of July without fireworks, a New Year's Eve without champagne, or a Christmas without Santa. By its 75th marching in 2001, the parade had survived wind, weather, societal, and culture shifts, and even an episode of frightening mishaps, but no circumstance could dislodge it from the heart and mind of the American family. This, finally, was perhaps the source of its power. It was a family affair. It enchanted young ones on the Manhattan curbside and on the floor in front of the TV set in Kansas, even as, in its ripe old age, it began to have a curious effect on parents and grandparents. These oldsters would smile, happy for the children, and also pleased to remember what life was like when they saw their own first Macy's Day Parade. Picture description. On November 6, 1999, the Honey Nut Bee was hanging in Hoboken, New Jersey with those good dogs, Snoopy and Blue. All passed their test and flew in the parade weeks later. The torch passes. Marionette artist Tony Sard was Bill Barane's mentor at Macy's. Years later, Barane's puppeteer on television was inspirational to a boy growing up in Mississippi named Jim Henson. That's what I want to do. In 1955, Henson, only 19, created a character that he considered his alter ego, a frog named Kermit. 22 years on, Kermit, by then the most famous of Henson's marvelous Muppets, was tapped for the Macy's parade by Jean McFadden as her first choice for a new balloon. Designers and other craftsmen in the engineered fabrics division of Goodyear Aerospace in Rockmart, Georgia, went to work. Throughout 1977 and into 78, Kermit took shape. At times, it appeared Goodyear was building a tribute to Jaws, or to that man-eating plant in Little Shop of Horrors. A scale-modeled Kermit moved about the plant to keep everyone's eyes on the prize. In 1978, the helium-filled Kermit was test-flown in Rockmart and was paid a visit by the hand-filled Kermit, who was taping a spot for his hit television series, The Muppet Show. In the fall, the big green balloon made its first appearance in New York City, and then in the following spring, it became the parade's first ambassador to England when it entertained the kiddies at the Queen's Children's Party in London. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound, or slide serenely between them. Superman, a perennial favorite, has had more than one incarnation in the parade. In fact, he made his Macy's debut before World War II. Of the various versions, the 1980 model was the most super colossal, at 100 feet in length, one of the largest balloons ever. This Superman was a fitting swan song for Goodyear's half-century association with the parade. The tire maker went out of the balloon business in 1981. The Man of Steel, the Man of Rubber, cruised Manhattan in 1984. Chilling on the Upper West Side. The parade that once commenced uptown in Harlem now begins at 77th Street. On Thanksgiving Eve, a mile-long caravan of trucks makes its way from Macy's Hoboken warehouse through the Lincoln Tunnel to New York City. Boxes weighing between 450 and 800 pounds are unloaded and opened. The synthetic creatures are laid on traps that cover streets near the American Museum of Natural History. At 3 p.m., the public can enter the area to watch the stars of the show being fueled from tankers holding 120,000 cubic feet of gas. It's a surreal scene as the many separated chambers inflate. A recent Rugrats balloon, for instance, had 22 gas chambers required, 16,780 cubic feet of gas. Yogi was a simpler organism. The show ends at about 10, and everyone beds down with netting for blankets. Rise and shine is 5:30 a.m. when each balloon gets topped off. Elements of the modern parade. The night before, the parade has become ritualistic, as has the following dawn. For years now, every Thanksgiving morn has seen huge balloons such as Yogi and Mickey and the Pink Panther awaken from their slumbers and release from their nets. Even as they get their helium breakfast, bands muster and clowns limber up. Finally, someone shouts, "Let's have a parade!" The turkey float leads the way down Central Park West. Santa always trails. The balloons are handled by teams whose dress reflects the characters' colors. Once they reach 34th Street and 7th Avenue, the balloons are brought to street level, and like Mickey, they sag. Clowns and bands, too, are deflated. Elements of the modern parade, 2. In the warehouse in Hoboken, New Jersey, a team of nearly 24 craftsmen work like Santa's elves to get ready for the big day. Unlike balloons, which deflate and fold, floats are hard to transport. Some can be as large as 40 square feet and 3 stories high. All must collapse to 8 feet wide by 12.5 feet high, license plate included, to scrape through the Lincoln Tunnel on the journey under the Hudson River. There is no Rudolph in the parade, but rather 8 not-so-tiny reindeer pulling Santa's sleigh. In 1993, Manny Bass in a red t-shirt applied paint to an eye for the Beethoven the dog balloon. Apropos of dogs, the eye of the pooch at far left weighed 30 pounds. Elements of the modern parade, 3. Because of the regulations put into place after the Cat in the Hat incident of 1997, balloons no longer fly as high as the Pink Panther did in 91, but they travel the same route adjacent to Central Park. As they do so, workers who have been up all night assemble the parade, scurry downtown to 34th Street, where they begin to dismantle everything that comes their way. This includes hundreds and hundreds of float elements, which when spread out the previous night, covered more than 70,000 square feet on 9 city blocks. Far too busy to watch the parade, the workers will gather on Friday in the Hoboken warehouse with other parade staffers and their families to view the previous day's proceedings on video and at last savor a Thanksgiving feast. Learning the sophisticated art of clowning. Despite the glowing smiles on the faces of Garfield's friends, a clown's lot is not always a happy one. The 500 grease-painted volunteers have to awaken before dawn and get to the 77th Street start line by 7:30 a.m. If Thanksgiving comes up cold, the clowns have to do some serious jumping and hopping to stay warm. While trained in these and other sillier movements, they have for decades attended clown school. Dick Monday, a former director of the Ringling Brothers and Barma and Bailey Clown College, led a tutorial in 1998. Below 3 masters, Adam Oslander and Hillary Chaplin of the Big Apple Circus Clown Care Union flanked Monday at the 98 sessions. A Monday rule of thumb: clowns can't play down to children. Kids are the most honest audience. If something isn't funny, they won't laugh. Picture description. Spider-Man, seen here in 1991, was the star of the parade. His 78-foot figure was kept aloft by 8,300 cubic feet of helium in 10 chambers running down his back. His stomach chambers were filled with air. The webbed one was retired after the 1998 parade. And the band played on. A morning rain in 1992 couldn't dampen the enthusiasm of 15 marching bands and their colleague cheerleaders, majorettes, and dancers. As seen from on high, the slickers and slick streets actually added a lovely sheen to many of the parade's patterns. This 92 edition was dedicated to the thousands of Macy's volunteers who worked it that year, some of them traveling from stores as far-flung as Washington, D.C. and Burlington, Vermont, and to the many thousands more who had volunteered since the first Employees Parade in 1924. A big, big dog and one bad, bad boy. Storybook characters in the pageant used to list toward Mother Goose. These days they are, for the most part, contemporary heroes like Clifford the Big Red Dog. Indeed, there are often dogs traveling in a sizable pack: Clifford, Snoopy, Blue. One year we had 8 pooches, said Gene McFadden. Thank God for Garfield. That was then, this is now. The very fat cat is out of the lineup, having headed for the balloon retirement home after the 1999 parade. Clifford, as any child could tell you, was a star of page and screen, while that skateboarder dude Bart Simpson was a boob tuber of the first water. He was also one of the parade's Gen X classics. Old friends and new friends. As the parade headed toward, then into the new millennium, animated venerables like Woody Woodpecker and Bugs Bunny finally made their appearances. Woody flew from 1988 until 1997, although it's actually 96, that's an error on the book. Bugs from 1989 to 1992. Several up-to-date stars were also recruited. Izzy, the torch-bearing mascot, heralded the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. Garfield the cat lasted from 1984 through 1999. Blue's Clues Blue took his, or should I say her, cue in 1999. Another error here I see. Movie star Babe the Pig debuted in 1998, and Arthur the Aardvark, star of Mark Brown's books and his own eponymous PBS series, first said hello to the kids below in 1997. In the end, it's about the kids and Santa. Every year, there's a toot or two who needed direction. Since 1924, they've all been hoping for a glimpse of the parade's ultimate star, Santa Claus. According to Macy's, the man in the sleigh from that very first year has been Kris Kringle, none other and no other than. This will not be dispute. However, it should be noted that there have been rumors. One, for instance, is that in 1947, Kringle was unavoidably detained at the pole. Bad weather, it seems, and that his place in the parade was taken by Edmund Gwenn, the actor who won an Oscar for impersonating Chris in Miracle on 34th Street. Other gossip has it that whenever Santa has had conflicts in recent years dating back to the 1960s, his fill-in has been a white-bearded, now semi-retired, still very jolly, Macy's employee.